justified terror which paralyzes needed efforts to convert retreat into advance. We face our common difficulties. They concern, thank God, only material things.
The deep end with Darren Lipscomb!
RevivalHouse.net and the Revival House Network. Got a new episode of The Deep End here. I got Zach with me.
What's up?
As usual. And another special guest, we got Josh James, a good friend of both of ours. He's a fellow podcaster. He's got his R-rated horror channel. You can find that on YouTube where he does the R-rated horror commentaries. But more than that, he's just a good guy. He's also an artist, comic book artist. And you're not going to get off easy. We're going to interview you. I'm going to talk to you about all that too. Because we never really talk about that stuff. We never really talk about that stuff.
I just figured you guys would be sick of me by now, but if you want to, yeah, that's fine.
No, man. I'm used to hearing your opinions on films and all that stuff. No, forget that stuff. We're done with that. I want to talk about Josh. We want to talk about Josh. Zach wants to know about Josh. So what got you into art? Tell us what you do. Tell the listeners what you do. Just invite us into that whole world for a second, because I don't have any friends that do what you do.
It's just one of those things, man, that's always been like kind of obvious. Like my father was an artist, my grandfather was an artist. So after high school, it just makes sense for me to go off to art school. And so I did. I just got a scholarship and went.
Was it a natural talent growing up? Was it just one of those things that you did?
Yeah, dude, it was a natural thing for me because like one of the ways for my parents to kind of keep me under control was to give me a pencil and paper.
Yeah.
Essentially, so, you know, I'd be sitting in church or wherever, you know, while mom was out running chores and, you know.
Or it might have made you get in more trouble, man. I used to draw too, and that was actually my quote-unquote natural talent, you know, growing up. The difference between me and you is I just abandoned it. I lost my patience and my passion for it.
I can't draw for shit. Like, I could fuck up a stick figure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're modeling it after your penis, I mean, you're probably doing it crooked.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a comedy podcast. I got to stop making all those off-color jokes. But no, well, I was going to say for me, it actually got me into trouble because with drawing, I just sort of would express myself growing up with normal things that you're getting introduced to or you're curious about. So like my parents and family would find a whole bunch of drawings of naked people and people having what I thought was sex. It's like, why is this guy sticking his dinghy in this person's belly button?
What, like old school, like Leonardo drawings or something like that? Or
oh, he did that too. Well, you know, and you just get extra creative. My brother, he liked to draw as well. He wasn't as good as me or anything, but all little kids like to draw. He was that. It's funny how like drawing and art, it really brings out what's going on in a child's head sometimes. You know, I mean, my brother, he was kind of socially awkward in his younger years, and he would draw a lot of images of what we were watching in the movies. He'd draw a lot of the violent stuff. I remember we got a phone call from his elementary school teacher, and my mom had to go up and talk to her because he drew a picture of Chucky, and he had severed the head off somebody with a butcher knife. And we're like in the first grade kindergarten, and I don't think it messed us up, but of course it caused concern. But he was always drawing really violent shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's something that like young boys probably go through, and everybody goes through like a drawing phase. But I think the difference was for me was, you know, since my father was an artist and my grandfather was an artist, it was like I was always getting lessons. So I was getting sort of these little mini formal lessons on the side, like, you know, this is how you construct anatomy. This is how you do basic perspective. This is how you use markers. This is how you use colored pencils, things like that. So it just kind of, I just grew on me, and it was just something that I knew that I was kind of good at. Got a lot of praise for when I was a kid.
And that's important too.
Yeah, there's just a lot of encouragement along the way. You know, I mean, I'm sure I started out as every other kid drawing like Garfield or Goofy in a sketch pad I got from the grocery store.
You just dated yourself. Okay, continue.
Yeah, exactly.
Garfield,
Mad Magazine characters and all that stuff.
We drew TMNT, stuff like that. Okay, so and that's you've touched on something important. It's obviously crucial to encourage kids whenever they find something they're into. You know, just it means a lot. I don't know. I think I lacked a lot of that growing up. I don't know about you, Zach. Like, but I think I could have used a little bit of that. So that's pretty cool. You had that.
I had that. I remember you told me like whenever you started playing guitar, your dad was like laughing at you. My dad was super excited. My dad bought me my first guitar and everything.
Why you got to bring up old shit, man? You gonna make me cry?
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh
your
man, when
turn,
you mentioned
bitch.
that in your first episode, that shit like broke my heart, dude. I was like, man, what a fucking asshole. But
So-
I mean, my dad was definitely like a asshole too, but that was like one area where we could relate to each other and he could encourage me, you know. So it was never like getting put down in terms of my hobbies. But and you know, another cool thing about having an artist as a father too was that he was always buying me shit, like expensive stuff to draw with, and so that, you know, that always kind of like greased the wheels. But yeah, man, like when I heard you talk about you playing guitar and like that little thing inside of you that wanted your father's approval, and he just totally shit all over it was just like, damn, man, it's fucking brutal, you know?
Yeah, it breaks you down. So it's like, I mean, I think I rebounded in a positive way, but I don't think everybody necessarily would. So I think it's cool that your parents kind of did the opposite. So as far as your art, was there anything that inspired you in particular? Or, you know what I'm saying? Some people worship a certain comic book or some people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I wrote this out one time because I had never really thought about it, but when I was in school recently, the last few years, I had to write out like a sort of self-narrative about my career in art stuff. And it really started with, I think, you know, like basic Saturday morning cartoons type of thing. Disney cartoons was big for me because I think my father used to sit me on his lap and we would go through Disney art books and things like that. And then from there, as I kind of grew out of that, it was Mad Magazine was like my big inspiration because that stuff was so subversive. It's just so tongue in cheek, and it had a lot of variety in terms of style. But that's really kind of like pushed me into doing, I think, art more seriously. But you know, I went through the paces. I mean, when I went to high school, I was put into a magnet school program, so I got to basically just drop foreign language and just take extra art classes for 4 years, and then. You know, that was my first like artistic community of people. So we just learned how to, you know, talk about art and share ideas and critique and all that good stuff. So that really was leaps and bounds for me in terms of going from, say, just a normal high school art interest into, you know, expanding it wider and seeing what I was really capable of doing. And getting into different areas of art as well. So, you know, it's one of those things. It's kind of not a straight line up. It's a waveform. It's kind of ups and downs here and there. But it's just one of those things that's always been kind of like the gift I was given. I feel like it's the one thing that sort of always kind of opened doors for me.
Yeah,
I didn't really have anything else. I wasn't like a, you know, excelling student. You know, I was the guy that was always held back in math and stuff like that. So yeah, I took it and I ran with it, and that's how my family encouraged me to do that. So
that's cool. I had a lot of people, some people close to me that more or less, I don't think they understood when I gave that up. You know, I think I've told you in private before. It's like I have other friends that have dabbled in art, and I know what you do. It just takes an insane amount of patience. And it's not that the things that I don't like don't take patience. It's just that there's only so much time in the day, and there's only so many days in our lives. You know, we kind of have to pick and choose where we're going to put that patience. And I just decided, it's like, man, I just don't think this is it. I don't have the patience for this. But I found myself having patience for music, and I have patience for writing, and I have patience for other things.
Right.
And I had some people close to me that just didn't understand it. Like, how could you just throw away the natural talent? Like, this is the natural. Because the other stuff wasn't natural, really. At least, I don't know, like maybe I was more apt to get better at that things than some people, I guess, you know? I mean, because,
yeah,
you know, but I mean, it wasn't so clear as being right out of the gate, being 5 years old and I'm destroying everybody in your class, you know, the class, right? It's not as obvious as that. So everybody kind of thought, why are you giving this up? Why are you not honing in on that? But just didn't care.
Well, one thing I think I've really learned, dude, is, you know, going through, I mean, if you include like the magnet school program I went through in high school, like in terms of like, formal education in art, you know, like 10 years. And so you see a lot of people come and go, like, you know, in your peer group and stuff. And it's really like talent it is only going to get you so far. It's just really such a small part of the pie, you know, in terms of like what it takes to be successful. Yeah, and I didn't have the passion.
I didn't have the passion for it. It's like, why would I even try and arbitrarily do something for work, you know? in my eyes. And not to mention, it's almost kind of a dig at the people that do. Like, it's like, let those people that are passionate, let them kind of rule the area, you know, and I'll direct.
Yeah, you got to have the passion, dude, because it's such a huge sacrifice. Like, I've been pretty much just living right above poverty level, like my whole adult life, just because it's, with the exception of when I went through the military, because I've dedicated my life to this field of, you know, the creative field, and it's not a very stable type of lifestyle. So it's really have to be clever in terms of like learning how to make ends meet, and you just have to give everything over to it, because if you don't, there's really no way you'll be successful unless you're, you know, have some sort of like crazy, you know, rare lucky break in the art field. But you have to pick a focused goal in terms of like what kind of art you want to do, and you have to really dedicate everything you have into being the best at it. You know what I mean? So,
and I noticed that too. I mean, I can kind of broaden that a little bit. I have a lot of friends and acquaintances that I've known that it's weird because they have the drive but no direction. No, wait, maybe I'm saying that wrong. They have the idea, they know what they want to do. Maybe they just don't know where they're going, or they don't want to put in the work. But I've had friends that they just want to be successful, right? In a broad sense. And it's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? I've had friends like this. Well, I want to be in the entertainment industry. Okay, that's still pretty broad. What do you want to do? What are you good at? Well, you know, I mean, I like video gaming. I also like this. And I'm like, there's your problem. There's a reason why in 10 years you've gotten nothing done. You need to sit there and hone in on an area, and you need to penetrate that. You know, go for it. And
you have to really sharpen your focus, because if you're just kind of all over the place, then
you're gonna be you're gonna be stuck making decisions or having trouble making decisions for way too long. You know, I mean, like literally, don't give yourself that many options. That's the biggest problem, I think.
Absolutely.
Don't eliminate options, and honestly, don't think too hard about it. You know, it makes you think of Barack Obama. Actually, random, I know. His politics aside, this has nothing to do with that. But do you guys remember how he used to always wear the same like suit? He used to always wear the same suit, same look, everything else.
Right.
And then somebody asked him, I don't remember who it was, like, how come you don't change your tie, you don't change your look, you don't change your suits when you go out and give speeches? And he gave a pretty reasonable answer, I thought. He's like, you know, I have to make so many decisions in a day. Me not changing my suit eliminates one of them. And it helps you get from point A to point B a lot faster. So, yeah, absolutely. So, honing in, sharpening the focus. Now, I imagine the drawing thing, it's a lot like any other art form. You know, with writing, I could tell you easily that a lot of my personal experiences and autobiographical stuff kind of seeps its way into writing, you know, and it gets twisted around and whatever and narrated around. Is that the same thing with art? Does it work that way? Like, do you have twisted fantasies and they come out on the paper?
Well, I mean, the art process is different for every artist. So I can't speak for everybody. For me, it's like I have my imagination, if you will come up with something, an idea, but it's always sort of morphs and changes in the execution.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which is part of like the brilliance of like being a creative person, is like your mind sort of it's what I call puzzle solving. And so your mind sort of like solves a puzzle for you when you're working on something. And then you end up with this end product, this end piece, and you're like, holy shit, how'd that happen?
Well, even if you have a direct initiative to like, even if you said, hey, look, I want to draw something, I'm going to try and emulate Jim Lee. Like, even if you really focus on trying to emulate Jim Lee, it's probably going to come out different. It's probably not going to look like Jim Lee, and it's going to be unique.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that before. We had an assignment in school where we had to, what was called the Xerox assignment, where we had to actually copy as perfectly as we could somebody else's work. That's totally different kind of thing, though. You really do learn a lot about other people's processes in doing that. But I find it the best artists, you know, they're just loose with themselves, and they just allow, you know, whatever's inside of them come out naturally and not fight it, and just sort of like turn into it. You know what I mean? Like, embrace it and let it be what it is. Because you can get really stuck in an idea of like, oh, I really want to be like the next Jim Lee or the next Greg Capullo or something, who are these amazing artists, but they have their own language. It's like a handwriting, so you have to just kind of develop your own thing too.
Plus,
so,
they already exist.
you know.
I mean, they already exist. Why would you want to do what they do anyway?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been like cultivating my own style, for years now, and I don't even understand really what it is yet. I don't really have a full command of it. All I know is I just have a plan and I follow through on it, and then when the piece is done, I stand back and I look at it and I'm like, well, I guess that's just what I'm doing. That's just what comes out of me. And the thing is to just market that to the people who can appreciate it. So like my stuff tends to be more contrasty, a little bit more of a noirish style. And so that appeals to more like edgy type of comics. And that's what got me my first gig really is my style. So, I wouldn't be perfect for say like manga if I wouldn't be good for like a children's book. I'm good for, horror type theme stories or darker type theme things.
Yeah.
So.
I think the rule for manga is take however large your female character's head is and make their knockers about 5 times bigger.
Yeah, I know.
Then you've got manga.
There was people, other students I saw when I was in school, who specifically would not draw anything else other than manga, which I thought was like kind of a disservice to themselves. Not because I have any qualms with the actual style or anything against manga, but you should be challenging yourself in a learning environment to see what you're made of. And when you're just trying to do nothing but copy a style because that's all you want to do. Then you're sort of cutting yourself off at the knees. I mean, you're not really seeing what your full potential is.
I don't know. It's really weird. I mean, I can notice subtle differences. I mean, different people's style of anime, right? Like, I know Studio Ghibli has their thing. I know that whoever draws fucking Dragon Ball Z, that's obviously their own style. But the lines blur a little bit for me. I think it's a lot like people look at me with music, right? I mean, I could sit there and play them Slayer. And then I could play a Morbid Angel right after that. To me, totally different bands.
Right.
But to them, it's like, it sounds the fucking same. That's kind of probably how I look at some of that stuff. But if you learn manga, man, you can do that hentai stuff and you can move to Japan and be a god. Because they worship that stuff over there, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many manga artists out there, but there's very few really, really, really good ones. And so, I mean... if that's how they want to make their living, I mean, that's just a weird thing because it's such a deliberate style. It's like if you're going to go to Disney to be an animator, you're going to have to learn that style.
Yeah.
And it makes sense in the context. But for me, that's not really for me. I feel like, like I'd rather see what sort of unique thing I can pull out myself, and it's still like a evolving thing for me, but I wouldn't want to be just a house style. You know what I mean? And there are house styles for like Marvel and DC and stuff, but I'd like to see what kind of like unique, voice I can get on my own. So,
hey Zach in Japan, that the hentai stuff is so commonplace that people read it out in the open like it's fucking Ziggy. I went to this bookstore and literally it was like the equivalent to like a Barnes and Nobles or whatever in Tokyo. And there's literally like a 6, 7, 8-year-old girl on the book rack reading some hentai, like sex, like book with little girls getting fucking squid fucked. And then right next to her, very casually, is like a 45-year-old man reading the same type of stuff, just very casually flipping through the pages. And it's like, I literally was looking over their shoulders. I'm like, this guy is reading a book that has a girl that's depicted as being 6 years old and she's getting tentacle fucked right next to a girl that's probably that age in the book.
Well, that 6-year-old's going to be of legal age in just like 5 years.
It's true. 13 is the legal sex age. I went to the red light district, man. I've seen it. It's like it's 13's legal age, so
That's
you're probably right.
up.
It's like a really weird thing. It's almost like grooming.
I've also heard that like in China, when you're born, you're already considered 1 year old because you've been in there for 9 months.
Yeah, they start at the 1 mark.
So, and then just a couple months later, you turn 2. So they're probably really like 10 years old.
Yeah, it's all weird, and I think that does like F with them a little bit when they come over here. When they immigrate over here, I think doesn't like their actual age change? I don't know if we honor that when they get papers.
Who knows?
I don't really know how it works, and the thing about China too is like you always heard about you can only have 1 boy, 1 girl because the population, right?
Yeah, I think they reversed that now, didn't they?
I don't know if they reversed it, but when I was over there, which was and
there was that thing. There was that thing where if you didn't have a boy first, you had to abort the girl baby.
Yeah. So I was over there 8 years ago, and obviously back in the old days, if you had already had a boy and then you didn't have a girl next, and that was it, they would sit there and just take that thing and chuck it out in the woods for the wolves to eat.
That's fucked.
Yeah, it was. So now they don't do that now, obviously. They're a bit more civilized, but they still, when I was over there, they still had a practice where if you broke that rule, that basically you would not get supported because it's a communist country. You would not get supported, and they would basically blacklist you. Like, you might have had an extra kid, but the government's going to see to it that you can't support that extra kid now because you're not going to be able to get a job.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fucked.
Fuck me.
So we can go on all day long talking about shit overseas, but hey, Zach, I'm curious. He's talking about this. What was your dream when you were a kid, man? I've known you for a few years now, and what did you want to be? I know. The first thing I wanted to be, my earliest memory was, I want to be a fireman. That lasted for one day, and then you go from that to cartoonist. And then I wanted to be a cartoonist.
My first love was I wanted to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
I have a shitload of movies I made, and then once I started playing music, I didn't really forget about it. It just kind of became my second favorite thing.
Gotcha. So what happened to filmmaking? What happened to music? Are you still pursuing any of those, or do you just figure to be hobbies at this point? Or
at this point, they're just hobbies. Yeah.
Yeah, which is great too. I mean, so interesting. Did you want to be a performing musician or a recording? Yeah. You used to have a band, didn't you?
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to I didn't care if we had fucking shit on MTV or the radio or shit like that. I just wanted to, even if we were just touring and booking our own tours, I looked at it like we were succeeding. But
I think if you're somebody that doesn't have any aspirations to have children or be married, there's people like that don't want to have kids, whatever. Absolutely 100% I could see myself have gone that route where it's man, I just want to play shitty clubs and self-sustain myself,
mm-hmm.
And live that lifestyle. That'd be awesome. Just drive around because I like to travel. I like road trips. What's not to like? But I'm kind of wired. I'm sort of wired old fashioned.
I did that for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really tour a whole lot, but in my early 20s, I probably most of my 20s, actually, it was in a bunch of different bands, and we played around Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And we played some pretty decent sized shows. I mean, we were, doing pretty good. It was a really awesome experience. Music is a big love of mine too. So, but I just really got to meet a lot of really great people and play some awesome shows and get out in front of crowds. And then I played some acoustic shows for a while, and then started writing my own music and playing out. And I still miss it to this day. And the feeling of making live music with people and playing in front of people, and that total anxiety.
Because there's always that opportunity that it could become a train wreck. It's oh shit, we fucked up so bad, but we're still up here and we don't give a shit. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, try doing that when you're doing can you imagine getting up in a room in front of a room full of people for the first time, just you and an acoustic guitar and a microphone?
Mm-hmm. The first time I played with a band, I almost threw up on stage. I remember
Yeah,
I went to take
terrifying.
a piss before, and my dick was shriveled up inside my body. I couldn't grab it. I was so nervous.
Yeah, I know.
How old were you?
18.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That the pre-show jitters, man. It's terrifying, but it's also the most kind of exciting thing,
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually just kind of grow a pair of gonads and you get used to it. You still always get it, but you just kind of know that everything's going to be fine, and that
As soon as the first notes play, you're just fine, and then before you know it, it's over.
it's all muscle memory. Yeah, and it's over, and then then the rush is over, and it's a good time, man. But those acoustic shows were always the most terrifying for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're naked essentially, especially when you're I would say most of the songs are your own that you just written. It's you have a set list of 12 songs, and you're just getting ready to hit that first note. You're I don't know if I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Acoustic, no mistake, goes over the audience's head, and you don't have a wall of sound to hide little errors. And it always reminds me of this. There's this video of Phil Collins. He's at Live Aid back in the 80s. And he's playing Against All Odds. And it's just him playing the piano. He's got no band, no big and he's playing the opening line. He just fucks up, hits a really bad chord, and he makes the cringiest face, like son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. But you got to keep going.
You just keep going, man, and you know, I mean, people are you have to remember that people are there to see you succeed. So you know, you just try to feed off the energy and be like, you know, what's the worst case scenario? You mess up the song, you skip, you go to the next song. But I remember the very first acoustic show that I ever played in front of people ever really was a pretty big show, in a small club. So it was full. And, you know, the stage was like, you know, right in front of these tables where people are sitting drinking. And there was this group of chicks right in front of me to my left that pretty much laughed at me the whole show.
Oh, man.
And that was brutal.
That's when you start heckling the audience is what you do, like a comedian would.
Heckling, I understand people that heckle, but like, why were these girls just laughing at you? Were you doing Weird Al covers or something? Like, what's to laugh at? Was your zipper down?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It could have been something completely unrelated for all I know, but to me, it was like, I was certain that it was like that they were, you know, projecting onto me this, you know, this failure that I was feeling on the inside. It was just, you know, mostly nerves. I'm sure it was just like...
Bottom line, anybody watching you, they've all got lives, man. Even if you mess up, they got their own shit to worry about. They're not going to be marinating on, you know, somebody's flub of a chord.
Yeah, they're probably just projecting all their insecurities onto you. Like, I wouldn't want to do that, so he must be feeling like shit.
Oh, yeah, like none of those guys. Yeah, a lot of those people wouldn't. Hey, Zach, have you ever seen that viral video on YouTube with the... that one local band and the guitar player is absolutely wasted and he fucks up their entire set. And when the song's over, the singer just walks up to him slowly and pauses and just fucking bitch slaps him.
I always feel bad for that dude.
Well, the whole band, it's so funny. Like, why did he ruin it? They did what they should have did. They finished the song. But then he fucks it up by slapping him. It's like, just finish the song, walk on stage, handle it behind the stage. But he couldn't, man. It was so embarrassing. And I look at that, I'm like, man, is that what it's like to totally fucking tank?
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd ever had an experience like that.
I never drank before. Our drummer, like, our first show was on his 21st birthday and he got drunk and we fucked up pretty bad.
Who cares though? But anyway, Josh, if you've listened to any of these deep ends yet, you could probably understand that this is just kind of an opener. This is an icebreaker, getting to know you a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's not the reason that we had the idea to talk. The reason that we wanted to talk is you had somebody in your family pass away recently, right? And we got into this huge discussion of fucking all we are is dust in the wind, Socrates shit, right? Because it was your uncle.
It's weird because it's always such a, you know, all the cliches come out because everybody has these sort of like canned thoughts or sentiments that start arising when somebody suddenly dies in your life. But the truth is that it really does stir up shit inside of you. I mean, if you're the type of person who, you know, who thinks about these kind of things, and I think most people do, you know, when somebody in your life, somebody that you know, just suddenly dies, your mortality becomes an issue. Not really an issue, but a topic of conversation, at least in your own mind, because you kind of realize the sort of fragility of this whole thing that we're doing is basically, you know, here today, gone tomorrow. There's no guarantees. You get another day, you know, so. And
it must have rocked you even more because you mentioned fragility. Your uncle, you said he was, what, 60, early 60s, and he was a perfect picture of health, right? In the gym every day or whatever. And
yeah, I mean, amazing guy. I mean, just, you know, everybody says good things about people and, you know, when they pass on, but this guy really was a model human being. Mm-hmm. And you know, I mean, he had a wife and kids. He'd been married to my aunt, you know, for a long time. Had 2 boys. They had both just recently gotten married. One, he just had his first grandchild. She's still an infant. So, you know, they had a lot of life to experience.
Well, that's young, man. 60s is, it's ridiculous. That's young. And like you said something that resonated with me. you mentioned, I mean, you're what, 40, 41? And you, something like that, right? How old are you?
40. 40. I just turned 40 last September, yeah.
Okay, my birthday's in September also. So you had mentioned,
no way.
yeah, it's like my birthday's September 22. What's yours?
13.
Okay. So you were like, you know, it really makes you have this feeling that the clock starts ticking when you hit 40, you know, because it's like if your uncle was only 20, 25 years older max, it's like, I could see. I mean, I'll be 32 this year. I mean, I think the way I cope with that, because I've dealt with that too. I mean, I spoke with it before on this podcast. When you know people that die extra young, you kind of feel blessed to even have anything, right? That's kind of the adverse effect. But, you know, it kind of takes away the entitlement of it all. But I kind of just accept the fact that when you come to terms with the idea that the world is this thing that's much bigger than you as an individual, it kind of relieves a lot of that pressure of mortality. You know, for me, it did. You know, it's like, why am I so stressed? What am I trying to live up to? The world is going to keep spinning. This whole thing around us is finite. It's just this big thing. I'm just a piece of it. And I don't know why that soothes me, but it does.
Well, because you have to put everything into a proper perspective. I mean, because we get bogged down with the trifles of daily life, and you know, life is hard to succeed at something or to go out into the world on your own and stand on your own 2 feet and try. If you're ambitious like we are, I mean, you're an ambitious dude, I can tell, and you got those Virgo genes in there too, so we probably can relate to each other.
Stay out of my dresser
on some
drawer.
level.
Bad joke.
Yeah, right. But you know, I mean, life's a difficult journey sometimes, especially if you try to take on a lot. You want to be somewhere in your life. So, for me, you know, I personally put pressure on myself to achieve or to get somewhere or be somewhere, and so I get caught up in that mind loop of, you know, of do this, do that, get this done, and or I should be here, I should be there by now. Or
yeah,
something, you know?
and why? It's funny how we do that. Why do we do that? Because you could look at it 2 different ways. I mean, somebody might look at it like, well, it doesn't matter how successful somebody is. You could be Steve Jobs and you're still going to die early. Right? Like he did.
Right.
So is it still this will and desire to try and beat that? Try and beat the final destination and see how far you can go? Are we trying to live as long as we can and hope we cross into an era that, you know, cryogenically freezing yourself as possible?
Where you can put your conscious into an AI and live forever.
I actually saw an article where somebody's like talking about that. It's so stupid, but like it's like somebody's working on it.
There's an episode of what's that show, Black Mirror, where it was like that. It was in the future they discovered how to put everybody into a cloud. Get it, the cloud. It's heaven.
But it's funny.
Yeah, right.
But it's funny though. I mean, so why do we? It's weird, man. You could be the healthiest guy in the world and you're going to get ran over by a bus. You might avoid most of the diseases or whatever, but you're going to get. You know, you're going to die in a freak accident or something. So why do we still aim for the sky on our ambitions when you could be cut short any time?
I just think that some people, you know, like I had a conversation with another podcaster about this on one of our shows. Was, you know, I think some people just do things. They're just doers. You know,
there's
what I mean?
A desire to leave a legacy.
Yeah, there is that.
There's
for
some
sure,
weird.
too.
It's just like people with kids. We have this natural human instinct to sire children, to pass on our genetic DNA, right? Not everybody, but most people. And I think even with like your art, everybody wants to do something that's going to pass on to the next generation.
Yeah.
You want to leave your stamp somehow, because to me, I think that's a coping mechanism for, to me, what's the scariest thing about dying. And I'm at peace with all that stuff. But to me, the thing that used to bug me the most about, you know, the idea of not being here is, you know, we've seen people die before, and it's like, to a degree, they're forgotten, you know? It's like, maybe not totally forgotten, but it's not like people are thinking about you every day, you know? Maybe you'll come up in passing when friends get together and be like, oh, you remember that? Oh, yeah. But everybody, life moves on.
Yeah, but even that has like a expiration date. I mean, if you're just a normal person.
Yeah, life goes on. So it's the thing about being forgotten, man. That's depressing. So maybe there's this, for me anyway, there's this desire to create something that's going to be tough to ignore.
Yeah.
But that's funny too, because it's like whenever we feel depressed, we always think about how little we matter. But then we still want
That's
to leave.
interesting.
It's like, oh, who gives a shit? In a billion years, the sun's going to swallow the earth and none of this matters. And that makes us feel better.
That makes it weird because sometimes I think when people are depressed and they have like suicidal thoughts, maybe sometimes the motive is not the motive, but maybe they're thinking, you know what, maybe someone will care for once, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but the sad fact of the matter is, man, we had kids in our school, you know, that was like the trendy thing killing yourself in high school might as well have been those cargo pants that zip into shorts. It was a fad, right?
Yeah, especially in the 90s.
That never happened to me.
So, but you also come from a small town, so maybe that's adjusted for numbers there. But
And a shitty town where more people would want to kill themselves.
it was a big deal where I came from, and so I watched it. We'd be in first period, and there'd be an assembly. You know, there'd be like the overhead, you know, the PA and the announcements, and they'd say such and such committed suicide or whatever. And it's so funny because this would be a kid that didn't have any friends or, you know, was lonely. He had issues at home, I'm sure. He was kind of introverted. And, you know, the teacher would make everybody sort of take a moment of silence. But man, as soon as that moment of silence was done, everybody started just talking to themselves like it didn't matter.
Yeah. Well, because, I mean, that people have to, I mean, that's just human nature.
Yeah,
people
but
have to get on with life, you know?
That's true. But like, I witnessed people not even get like a moment of mourning. Like these are like, it's like nobody gave this kid 2 seconds of their attention when he was alive. You think they're really going to give him 3 seconds of attention when he's dead?
Mm-hmm.
I watched it just seem like it wasn't anything to any of them. And it was disgusting.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's a gift that we have the time to try to achieve something, you know, which is why I try to stay really focused on my goals at this point in my life. Because it's like, well, you know, I only have a certain amount of time to try to, you know, make as many comics as I can or make as many podcasts as I can. Or it seems like even if I'm procrastinating on certain other projects, I'm still always moving forward on another. You know, like if I'm not working on the book and I should be, I'm still doing a podcast over here. I've always been making something. I don't know if it's just ego that drives that. I don't think so. I think, like I said, I think certain people have architecture about them, a design about their mind where they just feel compelled to like make things, bring things out into the world, you know, and like share with people, you know, be creative. And,
on that topic, that's, I mean, just doing podcasts like we do, a podcast like this, or the film commentaries that we do, even those, I mean, they might seem minute, but that's something that's on record, right? You know, I mean, a plague could come by and wipe all of us out tomorrow, but these things will be floating out there in cyberspace for whoever, you know? I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely.
They still, maybe people won't be listening to them. I don't know, but they're still like alive out there. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's just like when you make your first album or something, you put it out.
It's solidified. It's there. That's a tattoo. That's tattooed on culture. It's there.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, you used your voice, and it's out there for people to enjoy for the rest of the time. I mean, that's
people like Steve Jobs or people like Michael Jackson, where people are always going to see copies of Thriller. You know, that's about as close to immortality as you're going to get. Or Steve Jobs, you know, Apple products. That's about as close to immortality as you're going to get. You know, and yet I still go days without thinking about Steve Jobs. So it's pretty close.
While you're using your Apple product, even.
Yeah, no, true that. But like, I think that was a pill to swallow too for me was, and that helped me sort of come to where I am today. I had to accept that, you know what? That's okay. Yeah, when we pass away, people move on. That's just the nature of things. And, you know, to a degree, we're kind of forgotten. But I don't know. It just kind of made me realize that I have to love myself more than anybody. You know, you have to care about yourself. You got to be, and I'm not saying that in like a jaded son of a bitch way. You know, I'm saying, of course, you know, my mom loves me, my family loves me naturally. But at the end of the day, you have to be your own number one fan. I think you do, you know.
Yeah, it's not always easy to do, man. I still struggle with that. You know.
Oh yeah, me too.
I have moments where, you know, all this self-doubt or criticism, you know, comes into play, and I'm like, damn, I'm still dealing with this shit at 40. Like, I definitely give less fucks now than I did, say, 10 years ago. But still, it's more of a personal internal battle than it is battle with the outside world. You know,
the biggest problem, I think, the biggest thing people need to avoid with this stuff is comparing yourself to other people, because that's what you do. You're a kid like Zach. Okay, you're a musician.
Yeah.
When I flirted with that too, where I wanted to be a musician, and you kind of like look at everybody else's standard. Like, well, okay, take like the biggest metal band in the world, a band like Metallica. It's like, well, they were 18 when they started. I'm not. Oh my god, I got 2 more years. It's like, who gives a fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe look at a comic artist, or you look at a film director. Like, well, this guy made Quentin Tarantino was how old when he made Reservoir Dogs? Shit.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
But you can't do that, because for every 18-year-old that makes Kill 'Em All or whatever, look, I'll speak in terms of music. The band Slipknot, Zach, of course, everybody does, I think. Dude, the fucking clown in that band, dude, he was literally like fucking 34, 35, 36 when they got signed. He's fucking older than shit now.
Yeah.
He was literally approaching middle age, and he had like 5 kids.
And that's kind of a bad example, because all he does is hit a cake. So
Yeah. It really was. But there's can you guys think of a director that kind of got, or actors? Morgan Freeman was old when he got it started.
John Carpenter was probably older when he started.
Yeah. I think about Morgan Freeman. He just got a Lifetime Achievement Award. He's in his 70s, I believe, and he's been in the business. I think his first movie was in his early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you gotta tear down those shitty parameters that we have for everything else, and it doesn't matter. And also something that I accepted too was just fatalism. I mean, all you can do is the utmost best you can do. And honestly, I believe in a divine plan. I believe in fate. I believe things happen as they should, and it's all for a reason. And some people might call that a cop-out, because now we're kind of getting into religious territory. I don't think it's a cop-out at all, but it does bring me comfort. I mean, like, we can't all be Justin Bieber, man. You're not going to get discovered on YouTube at age 13 by Usher.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Yeah, but on the other hand, dude, we live in the greatest country in the world where, you can literally invent yourself to be anything you want. And we have a golden ticket to try to achieve. I understand where you're coming from, because I used to sort of think that way too, but now I think to myself, like, we literally have like all these great opportunities and avenues to explore in this country to try to achieve our dreams. It's like, you just have to be smart and persistent, I think. And
you don't even have to be smart, because there's some millionaires and billionaires that are fucking stupid. Like the idea of Snapchat. If somebody came to me with the idea of Snapchat, like, oh, it's an app where you take a picture and it disappears, I'd be like, fuck you, that's retarded. What's the fuck's the point of taking a picture?
But then you have another guy that says, but it's amazing, because when this app comes out, sending dick pics is going to be all the rage, and you want those dick pics to vanish.
Yeah, but that was always funny too, because it's like, well, you can still screen cap them.
But then that makes people be accountable for it. Less people are going to do it. I don't know. It's dumb. It's stupid.
It's weird though, because with that app specifically, like when it first came out, it would try to stop you from screen capping, but now it doesn't even try. It just lets you.
I thought Instagram's even bigger, but Instagram, when that first came out, I thought that was the dumbest thing in the world. Like, I don't understand, because to me, it's like you could just post your pictures on Facebook or MySpace or whatever.
They have
like,
cool filters.
But it's like, it's minimized. Like, why do people have an account where you just post a picture? It's like
Instagram is like fucking huge, man. That's such a huge app,
People
and I
become-
underuse,
people become celebrities on Instagram. Like this whole thing of Instagram fitness model or Instagram model. And it's like, okay, I get it. Once you acquire a certain number of followers, then you actually legit start getting endorsement deals, on your Instagram, because you have so many followers. Then I guess, by definition, you're a professional model. Just you kind of squeeze yourself into it. Granted, you were born with looks, and you go to the gym, and you're whatever. I mean, part of it's God's work. But
Aaron, did you see that article that came out today about that YouTuber Logan Paul got demonetized?
Yeah, and thank God.
Projected to lose like $1 million a month or something.
Dude, that guy. Okay, so that's an example of what Zach is saying. I think you have idiot millionaires and that are just stupid. So here's what happened. I know the story. So obviously, about a month ago, he had the whole ordeal where he was in the woods in Japan.
You know what? Honestly, I'm surprised that was as big as it was. Because I saw that and I was like, wow, that guy's a dick. It never would have crossed my mind that would have became a huge
to me,
thing.
that's pretty raunchy, man. That's pretty disrespectful. Not to mention you're going to piss off an entire market of his, right?
It's really the way he handled it. Like you could go in there and just try to talk about this forest, and it's really the way he went in there with the idea, like, I'm going to get somebody on tape.
It's because it's him, because he's a flippant, jerk off, basically.
Right,
it's just
he's
disrespectful.
You know what? I'm not dogging somebody for finding an audience and capitalizing on that audience, but he's too young to be that rich and that influential.
I'd never even heard of him until that happened.
Too young. Okay, so basically he did that. He came out with his shoehorned apology and said, I'm going to take a step back, whatever, damage control. He disappeared for a month. Then he comes back with another video that he's electrocuting a dead rat.
Immediately, he just starts trying to, like, push buttons again.
It's like, well, he always kind of did stupid shit like that. He always did stupid shit that was disrespectful to things like that. But yeah, the first video back, look, I'm a changed man. He's electrocuting a dead rat in the street. I'm like, how is this? You think you're not going to piss off somebody with this? I mean, and then, yeah, YouTube kind of had to take action. And I think they suspended it for, a month or two? Something like that? Not permanently.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Not permanently, no.
All monetization of his videos.
If that was me or you, we would have gotten banned completely.
Dude, I guarantee you we couldn't. I don't monetize these podcasts, but the ones that we do, we don't do anything wrong. If you say a swear word, it's done. This guy got away with way too much. And it's just because, they're in the pockets of Google, they bring in the revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But they're the exception to the rule.
That's really weird, too, because it's like, it's up to these fucking advertisers, too, because they're like, oh, we don't want to be on something where they're talking about even if they're not even giving an opinion, they're just talking about the news. Don't put us on there, but Logan Paul, dead bodies, that's good shit.
Even if that doesn't get him punished, and even if nobody really gets upset about it, why is electrocuting a dead rat entertainment? Literally, the guy's like 22 or 23 or 24, maybe he's 25. I don't know how old he is. He's in his early mid-20s. Dude acts like he's 16. He's got the haircut of a fucking jock 16-year-old high school kid. I mean, in his audience is young kids. Young children.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my little brothers, they listen to that. I didn't know who he was until I talked to like my kid brothers in high school or in middle school. But yeah, man, I don't know. So Josh, you feel pretty good though, like where you're at right now with your art. I mean, you just got a new gig, right? You just got a new gig.
Yeah, I mean, it's finally the flowers starting to blossom. I mean, I put a lot of work into getting to this point, so it's kind of like it's just finally paying off. And this is kind of like it's essentially like a breaking gig. I think if this book sells well, we're going to do 5-issue story arc. And if it does well, then it could, lead to other.
Are you at the point where you can tell us the name of the story and everything?
Yeah. Well, the book's called, Genetica.
Okay.
With 2 A's, and it's going to be published through Scout, which is an indie publisher, who's their lineup of books is probably about 8 to 10 different books right now with varying different styles. So they're kind of like what Image were like, say, like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of variety. There's a lot of creator-owned stuff, so there's a lot of good creativity in it. I just happened to get picked up to do it because I was working with somebody else who was sort of collaborating with them, and they thought it'd be a good match with the writer who's a really well-established, talented writer, and so it was a lucky break for me.
And you never know, man. You never know what things are going to lead to. Like this might be, I mean, obviously it's a lucky break. It might be a huge break.
Well, that's how it works in this business. You just kind of got to get your foot in the door somewhere, and then if you do a good job, you're in. But essentially what happened was I have my work online in a Behance portfolio, which is like an Adobe run sort of online portfolio thing. I'd had some new samples up there of my narrative work, and an indie writer, a guy he's trying to break in doing TV writing and comics and stuff like that, found my work and liked it and wanted me to do a story with him. And we were going to have it published through a Kickstarter, I think. And so we had actually started doing breakdowns for the script and everything like that. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he was like, oh, this thing has come along and it'd be a really good opportunity for you. Like, we should just drop what we're doing on this and you should work on that because it'll be, like your chance to kind of break in. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll check it out. And the writer's name is Paul Jenkins. And if you're an avid comic reader, you might know his name because he's done some good stuff. But he's worked a lot with DC and Marvel and stuff, and he's probably best known for like Wolverine Origins. But he's doing a new creator-owned comic called Genetica, which is sort of like this sort of dystopic world, future world where like animals and humans are fused together, and there's different hierarchies in terms of race, depending on how pure you are and things like that. So it's a good story. He's a great writer. And I just got lucky. So basically we're just going to do these 5 books, and he's like, if it goes well, then I'll help find you, some better paying pro gigs or whatever. And so really what I have to do is just spend this year doing a really good job on these 5 books. We're going to have to get 2 done and finished in the can before they start soliciting them. There's going to be a teaser for Free Comic Book Day. We just finished the first cover. And then, we're going to finish the first 2 issues, and then they're going to start soliciting it while we're working on issue 3. And then we'll just wrap it up over the course of the rest of the year. And then it comes out, and if it sells well, then that means I get more work, or it could lead to the next thing. It really is like a hopscotch thing. It's kind of like you just make something and you hope people catch on to it, and then it leads to the next gig, and then just try to kind of climb the ladder as you go.
That's anything. And I think, persistence is what separates the winners from the losers, man, because people get so beat up because they don't have the skin to try and cut it.
It's really hard.
It's competition.
It's really hard.
With everything, it's competition, even with like film and writing, I've seen it secondhand. I've experienced it firsthand. I could see why people get deflated, you put your heart and soul and you work on something for sometimes a whole year. Sometimes you'll just be writing something in that stage for a whole year. You'll be proud of it or whatever. And you'll have close calls. You'll have financing. The financer will drop out. This will happen. Something will get shelved. And before you know it, it's like, I think in the film world, they say it takes about 7 projects before you actually get one done. Like that's just kind of the average, and you just sort of have to be prepared to take those blows. And I think sadly a lot of people throw in the towel after the first one, maybe the second one.
Well, I mean, I essentially did that myself because my original thing that I wanted to do, if we can, you guys don't mind if I go off on a tangent about myself again for like 5 seconds.
Your career in gay porn, continue.
Yeah. We'll get to that for sure.
Just kidding.
But you gotta make the extra bucks somehow. I gotta keep the cell phone turned on.
You could have at least been a fluffer, dude. You didn't have to actually do any of the acts. You could have just, kept the guy going.
Yeah, man. Just lots of lube. That's my motto.
Okay, we're done with that. Continue.
So I mean, essentially, like my first go around in my art career after I graduated and got my BFA was I wanted to be like an animator. That was like my dream, and I got my dream job essentially. Well, close to a dream job. I was working as like an animator on like cereal commercials and stuff, and that's how I ended up in Chicago.
Cool.
And it's after a couple of years, I got laid off, and then I ended up going to another animation place. Then I got laid off from there a year later, and then I just kind of bounced around to random gigs.
Was there any commercials you worked on that made it?
Yeah.
You were doing like the Honeybee and Toucan Sam, stuff like that.
I did, yeah. Like I did Trix Rabbit. I did Lucky Charms. I did Cocoa. I did a Spanish Cocoa Puffs commercial. I did Orville Redenbacher's, Rocks Candy, all kinds of really neat commercials. I would like wake up on Saturday morning and see like my Lucky Charms commercial on TV.
That's cool.
When I was like in between like watching Batman Beyond, like it would come on. I'd be like, oh, cool.
Did you ever get tempted to sneak in a cock? See if anybody noticed.
Dude, I
never knew this, man. That's freaking awesome. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but cool. when you get a job for like, let's say Trix, now are you actually drawing the rabbit? Or are you drawing the whole thing? Or could it be just your job to, okay, like Josh, we need you to do the children, or we need you to do backgrounds? Yeah.
Essentially, like I was starting out in betweening, which is like, if the animator drew like frames like 1, 5, and 7, I would do like, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, okay.
So then I was the in-betweener, and then I'd do that for like a month, and then they would put me on what they call fine lining, which is basically cleanup work. And then they would be like, all right, we need to do all these like, I did a lot of kids eating cereal in the background, or like the back secondary or third tier characters that like always in the background stuff. Like I did a lot of that stuff too. So
now a job like that, if I can ask, so a job like that, for the duration that a commercial you might have worked on, for the duration that it airs, probably throughout the year. Some commercials go on for a long time. Now, were you just paid one and done, like a commission, or do you somehow get like a residual?
No, I mean, I was paid hourly wage at the time.
Okay.
So it's basically just a 9 to 5 job. I'd go in the morning, I'd work. I literally was there doing that when 9/11 happened.
Oh.
If that gives you like a context of the time. But yeah, we just go in, I get paid an hourly wage, and then, I think I worked just under full time. So it wasn't, I was essentially like a full-time freelancer, so I'd work like 30 to 40 hours a week.
But if somebody in that field creates the next Sugar Bear, you're going to get residual checks for as long as Sugar Bear is alive, right?
No, I don't get any creator royalty fees or anything like that. All those characters are owned by the companies that our animation house.
Right.
We were all contracted. And essentially, we were just, the studio that I worked at would get paid a fee to create the commercial.
Gotcha.
It would air, but all the the characters and stuff are owned by the like Kellogg's or Post cereal.
For that, you'd have to create your own cereal and own mascot.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
But that's a sweet like resume point, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I was when I got out of art school, I waited tables for a year, and I just was trying to figure out. I was sending out resumes. I was getting rejection letters from like Lucasfilm and Disney, and like I wasn't getting my foot in the door. And I actually ended up taking a trip to Chicago just to visit my best friend from high school, and he was working as a graphic. He would do like credits and stuff for commercials and stuff like that, like all computer generated CGI.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling them, I'm like looking for a job, and they told me about this place. They're called Calabash Animation. And I just called them while I was in Chicago there on vacation. I think I was there for a week. And they had me come over for an interview, like just totally randomly. Like I just happened to have my shit with me. But they sent me home to do a pencil test to see if I could do in-between work. And I went home and I did it and then sent it in via email, and they hired me. And then so the next thing I had to do was move all my shit from Kansas City to Chicago. My friend and his girlfriend ended up moving in together. That's his wife now. So I ended up subletting her apartment, and it was only like a couple train stops away from where the studio was. So it ended up working out really well. And then basically, that was like my dream job. I was like, oh, I'm making it work, So what happened was when 9/11 happened, it totally trashed the economy.
Mm-hmm.
And since it was like the studio was basically ran off ads, because Chicago's a big ad town. I think a lot of people got really conservative with their money. A lot of animation houses around Chicago closed down, and all these like really seasoned veteran animators flooded the market, and all these new guys got pushed out essentially. And I was out of work.
It's really funny because people were talking about I remember when 9/11 happened, I was in like 4th grade or 5th grade, something like that. So I'm quite a bit younger than both of you guys. But yeah, I remember people were like, yeah, the world, it's coming to an end, man. And I remember thinking, no, it's not. But it kind of it was like people were never felt that safe again since then.
Yeah, dude, I remember how things. The big thing at the time was Y2K, and then nothing happened, and then all of a sudden I moved to Chicago, and this terrible thing happens, and I remember that day because I was in downtown Chicago at work because the studio was right off downtown, right off the loop, and my boss made everybody stay in work because we were on deadlines and stuff. So I went out for lunch. I would just walk over to the Loop to go get a slice of pizza or something. The Loop is like the central area in downtown Chicago where the trains run around. Mm-hmm. And I went down there, and it was like a ghost town, and it was just this really bizarre thing where you knew like the world had changed because
this was the day. Was this the day?
It was
because when that went down, like all these other big cities didn't know, are we next? Because you don't know what's going on. And it's like you could have been in Chicago thinking like everybody just stay out of the streets. We don't know what's going to go flying into what.
Yeah, and I didn't know. Nobody knew what was going to happen. The train. It was like a fucking ghost town. There was nobody walking. I was like down there. Everything was closed. And I remember seeing there was, the Sears Tower in Chicago.
Yeah, Wilson's Tower now.
I'm thinking, the Wills Tower. So there was like a helicopter on each point of the building. So there was 4 helicopters hovering around that building. And I just remember it just being just this really strange feeling, like nothing was ever really gonna be the same. Essentially, it led to me losing that job, and then eventually I got another job in animation, and that's where I ended up meeting Josh Blaylock, who is the owner, founder of Devil's Due Comics. And I was his first employee. So that's how I really got into, I liked comics, but I didn't work in the industry. Basically what had happened, we had worked together at another place at an animation house, and we were doing animation stuff and character design for kids, learning software that these schools would buy as packages, and it was government funded. Well, a year down the road, they laid off half the office. There was like 50 of us that got fired, and we all went out and got like completely shit hammered, like in the middle of the day on a Monday. And so me and him became friends, and I was actually working the door at a bar in Chicago trying to make ends meet. And he would come in there all the time, and I just got a random call from him, and he said, I'm starting a comic book studio, and I got the rights to G.I. Joe, and do you want to come be, I'll pay you $12 an hour or whatever, you'll be my studio assistant. So I learned about the comic industry from that turn of events, essentially. And it was just me and him in like a broom closet, like above a broom closet. It was a really, really, really small office above a 7-Eleven in Chicago. And, it was so small that we'd actually have to take turns, like going in and out to like sit at the desk and stuff. And, and so he had just put out the first issue of G.I. Joe that he wrote himself. And, so from 1 on out, I think I was there for like 2.5 years, basically just learning about comics, and then traveling around to cons and promoting the book and talking about the book and learning how things worked and working with the artists. And I was just like, I kind of got the bug. I was like, this is a really cool industry to work in. And, I didn't have the skills to do narrative work at all. Like I could do animation style of work, which is totally different from doing narrative work. Like I didn't realize how difficult it was. So, eventually Josh and I parted ways. I ended up doing conceptual work. Design work for a company out of Niles, Illinois that did like collectibles and things like that. So I did all kinds of weird things, from like Christmas ornaments to like pewter train sets or teddy bears or whatever they needed me to do. And I could just work from home and invoice them, and they'd send me money. Mm-hmm. And so, it's just been one thing but I always remembered that comics was cool. And so when I got out of the military, I went back to school. I decided to go to the Kubert School to learn how to be a comic book artist.
Did you go to the military before or after 9/11?
After. But it was a long time after. I joined in 2008.
Okay.
And the main reason why I did that was because I just couldn't support myself anymore. Chicago was like really expensive. I had school loans that were killing me. Mm-hmm. And, it just was time for a change. And so I did that. I wanted to learn another skill. I wanted to travel. It just felt like the life had gotten really stale. Wasn't really achieving. And then, I'd really gotten far away from my creative thing, because like one thing about creative jobs is they don't last very long. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, back in the old days, like if you're an animator and you went to Disney, you were there for like 40 years. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. Like you'll go work on one project and then get laid off, So, mm-hmm. I really had to learn that lesson the hard way. And so, I kind of I drifted away from art for a while, and I actually had to go through the military to kind of figure out it was really what I wanted to do.
That's interesting, because you actually enlisted in the military pretty late, considering, like you were probably pushing 30?
I turned 30 in boot camp right at the end.
That's interesting. Because I know, a lot of people that, they're headhunting them right out of high school and they go into the military, and, some of them make careers out of it. Some of them can easily say once they serve their time, like, I don't want to, I'm glad I got that over with. But you were kind of an adult, you were 30, you weren't a kid.
Yeah, well, let's say in a division out in boot camp, there's like 75, 80 dudes. There was probably like 10 guys in their 30s, you know, so we were a small ratio. But, you know, I mean, there's plenty of guys. Usually guys who are older end up going officer. But I don't really think my college degree translated over. You know, I think maybe my recruiter was trying to make enlisted quota, but I didn't really care. I think I just wanted to go try to get some of my loans paid off and have an adventure and then be done with it. And so, yeah, essentially they asked me if I wanted to re-enlist, and I was like, no, I'm done.
Got it out of your system. And that leads me to something else I'm going to ask you. But before I do that, you touched on something earlier that I think is pretty cool to highlight. But when you mentioned getting the gig at, was it Calabash? Is that what you said it was called?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You had this opportunity come up and you had your stuff at the ready, right? I think that's a good lesson for a lot of people, is no matter if you feel down, if you're not exactly having a lucky streak with what you're doing, or not, always keep your craft up and always be ready. Boy Scouts motto.
Absolutely.
Boy Scouts motto, always be prepared. You know, and I got friends and people that I know that fall victim to that all the time. They want to see the reward before they put in the work, right? Or
they just get defeated really quickly. They get defeated. Couple no's and they just quit.
And
you know?
it's like they never know when an opportunity comes up and you haven't picked up your pen in a year or 2 years, and your portfolio's dried up and you have nothing. Because it's not like it's not, opportunity doesn't cater to anybody. It just shows up. You know, hopefully you gotta look enough, you gotta put yourself out there enough, you gotta network enough, and eventually you're gonna be in the right place at the right time. You're gonna maximize the chance to do that, and you gotta have your shit with you.
You have to cast a wide net as an artist, and have your work be as sharp as it can be. You can't like be leaning on work you did like 2 years ago. You have to always be making shit. That's why I always take like commissions from people. I always have like 5 or 6 things going, because it always keeps me making new stuff. Whether I'm really lucky that I've created a world around me, and it took me a long time to do this. It didn't just happen overnight. When I went into school, right after I got out of the military, when I went into school, I created a business right away, and I started building like a word of mouth thing, and started really promoting the shit out of myself and doing good quality work for like a really inexpensive price for people. So, because I knew word of mouth was going to be really crucial for me to keep getting work. So essentially, I just always have work. I'm always really, really busy, and that's crucial to surviving in this field. But I mean, it also keeps my skills sharp. I'm always learning something. Eventually I'd like to just make comics full time, but until I have to supplement my income until, my level of pay rises up the scale. But, yeah, you have to really just keep crafting, honing that craft.
No matter if you're making money from it or not, you got to keep doing it. Same thing with writing, man. It's like you can write a script, you can do all that stuff, and that could not go as you planned, but you got to keep writing. And let's say somebody actually does pick up your script. Let's say you just want to sell it. Maybe you don't even want to make it yourself. It might go over well, it might not, but what if it goes over well and that studio's like, okay, you got, a lot of times when you're trying to shop a script around, they're going to ask you, okay, what else you got? You better have like fucking 7 things to show them, right? We're talking finished stuff. Or you never know. You might, not being ready and not having anything else and not keeping up on your craft, man, that could just be the difference of an entire lifestyle. I don't know. I think of a lot of famous people, a lot of successful people, and they were always in the right place at the right time, and they had their shit equipped to strike, right, when they noticed the opportunity. Yeah, you got to be staying there with your portfolio under your arm. I mean, you have to be out there mingling in your peer group too. That's really, really crucial. Like I do, every year I do Free Comic Book Day at the same comic shop here in Jersey. And I could essentially go and I just do free artwork for people for like 6 hours straight. But what I'm doing when I'm doing that is I'm actually making fans that, might follow me for 10, 20 years down the road, or God knows how long. And I'm building a relationship with the store. I'm building a relationship with other artists, and what we're doing right now is networking. You never know.
Dude, the whole reason why I started R-Rated Horror Commentary Podcast
is a vehicle of promotion. networking.
The genesis. I mean, I love horror movies, of course. I love film. I always wish I could have been like a film director like you, Zach.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, me and my friend Dan, who was in my class, we graduated the Kubert School together. He lives upstairs, and we're both horror fans. And it was my idea. I was like, let's just start a commentary podcast together, and we can promote our artwork there and talk about our artwork. We could put links up there, and originally I wanted to have like each of us do a drawing per episode, so that we, say if we did Friday the 13th part 3, we could do a drawing that was about Friday the 13th part 3. Well, that never happened because that was just way too much work on top of everything else. But it's just a vehicle for me to, and believe me, man, when this comic comes out, I'm going to be promoting the fuck out of it, because it's like YouTube is an area of social media I'm not tapping into.
Well, and eventually one of them is going to blow up the other. So if your comic gains steam, right, they're going to come over to your podcast, or your podcast gains steam. They're going to obviously be there for you. And that's my whole story too. I don't know if I've told you this story. I don't know if I've really talked about it on the air. I think Zach knows, but the whole genesis from Behind the Mask, because we started off, my co-host Riverman, we did the whole Behind the Mask thing. We started in 2010, 11. I don't know. It's been a long time, 8 years. Anyway, the whole idea with this was, I want to write. And it's like, but how do you penetrate? It's like, we live in a sea where there's a bunch of people that have a lot of loud voices. How do you get yourself noticed? Especially with, we live in a world where, to get credit, you have to have credit, It's like, fuck.
Right.
Like, how do you do this? No one, how am I gonna network with these people that won't even acknowledge me, right? I'm nobody. I'm just nobody. I live in a small town, whatever. So I thought, okay, what is one way that I can sort of network with industry type people? Well, I could become the media. All right. So how do I become the media? I was like, we can, at the time, podcasts were dead. Now they're huge. It blows me away, man. Podcasts in 2010, 11 were a dead format. It was pretty much just, fanzine type stuff, real underground stuff, niche stuff. And that's kind of what we started out doing too. But anyway, I figured, okay, well, thinking like 20 steps ahead, and you have to have a big picture mentality with this stuff. I figured, okay, well, if I want to become the media, I have to build an audience. And to build an audience, I probably need to, maybe I could try and work on interviewing people, and then the audience will come. They'll be attached to the fan bases of those people. But to even get those people to notice us, we have to start small. So we started our podcast, and we build very, very small, very small. And then from there, we did that for a couple of years. Then we built a website. I'm like, okay, if we build a website, I can get like a legit domain name. I can get like a legit email that looks official. And all I need is just to get one somewhat name to say yes, finally, right? Just all I need is one person to say yes, and then it'll be the floodgates opening. And that worked, right? I finally got Jason David Frank, Power Rangers fame, to give me an interview. I landed on the right guy that just liked to talk, right? And but it worked because he had a fan base, and all of a sudden I had a video that had like 40,000 hits, and the website had even more. And then now, from that point on, when I tried to get other guests, I would throw that in there. It was like my portfolio. Like, oh, I've done this.
Your hook.
Yeah. I was like, I've interviewed here. Here's link to this. And they just start spilling in. And then eventually it got to a point where you get offers. You don't have to ask. You get offers like, hey, do you want to do this? You do this. And then I started getting really tight, and I started knowing some of those, the people that handle press releases, the people that handle marketing for these film studios or distribution companies, like Blu-ray distribution companies. I got to interview directors. I got to interview writers. That's how I got to meet, who I, consider to be my writing partner these days, right? My Paul McCartney, John Lennon type situation, right? Because we started getting invitations to cover film conventions and little film festivals and stuff, and you meet other people that are into it, and you start rubbing your elbows, and you start sharing ideas and whatever, and you try and like weasel your way into certain circles, and all the while I'm trying to work on my stuff, and you meet the right guy, and you're like, hey, look, I've been working on this. Like, what do you think? And once there comes a point where you're no longer unsolicited anymore. You've crossed the line. And that was my idea. Like, okay, if I can get in with the media side of it, even, okay, meeting directors, meeting filmmakers, meeting other artists, that's one thing. That's networking. That's building peers. That's great too. But just the whole reviewing Blu-rays or reviewing movies and getting in touch with just the people that handle marketing and communicating with these studios, that's big, right? Because, okay, so if I were to sit there and locate their information and be a nobody and be like, hey, I was wanting to know, how do I get scripts to somebody? They're not going to fucking answer my email. But if I've been reviewing movies and taking interviews and building a professional rapport with Dan over at fucking, Lionsgate for 3 years, then maybe I could be like, hey, look, we have a project going here. Who might I talk to about, You're not unsolicited anymore. That's everything. So you got to be a patient person, man. Some people look at the top of the mountain and go overwhelmed. Don't do that. Look at that mountain in steps, right?
Yeah. If you're not out there, you have to be out there interacting with people, with a peer group that want to achieve the same things as you do, or at least related to, in order to get into the mix or get involved or, see what opportunities are going to come your way. You cannot achieve anything without getting involved somehow. And the only way to really do that is, let me just piggyback on something. I think really what your point is like one thing I learned that it took me a while to figure out was, if you just create, if you're just doing your own thing and creating and putting it out into the world, like people respond to it. It actually attracts more opportunity into your life if you're putting stuff out into the world and not waiting around for an opportunity to come along to save your ass. Like, for somebody to hand you an opportunity is a huge mistake. Like, just create your own world around you. And if it's good, if you do it well enough, I think it attracts, for instance, like, I think Wiesel, Matt Wiesel is like a really talented personality in podcasting. And like, I didn't ask him to be on the show right away. It was like, he just kind of found us and then joined in, and then like that led to me doing artwork for like other podcasts and making money doing that. And it's like that never would have happened if I hadn't just started the show. It's the same thing. See, I think one of the things that I really like about you, Aaron, other than like, just really funny guy,
and I'm hung,
is that and you're hung like Seabiscuit, is that you have an entrepreneurial spirit, is that you're a self-starter, like you see the opportunity in life, like just through your own capabilities instead of waiting for things to just show up on your doorstep. You
got to look at the era we live in. You can do a lot yourself, right? And talking about
absolutely.
It's like take charge of it. So the behind the mask thing too. And my vision was actually like yours too. I'm like, okay, so then we have a website, and then we've built our own vehicle of promotion, and now we build a fan base with our podcast and our website. Well, I've got an installed fan base to start spreading, whether it be via crowdfunding or just overall hype and promotion. I mean, create your own.
Exactly.
Why are you waiting for other people to support you? Create your own network of support.
Exactly, dude. Exactly.
Build it through other ways. And yeah, it's absolutely insane. And anyway, so fast forward, and now for us, it started off as Behind the Mask, and I thought that was going to be the umbrella. But now, of course, everybody knows Revival House. That's like the branding, right? That this is the umbrella. Behind the Mask is a podcast. We're a podcast network, and we're trying to build that. But at the end of the day, once I can get one of these fucking projects of mine to actually go the distance, game on. Then I can actually start utilizing the Revival House pictures, that I own technically. So it's gonna all work together, and eventually it's gonna pay off. It's all about persistence and just, I don't know, man. Just I'm gonna sound cliche, Jesus take the wheel, but just give it up to God. Just do your best, man. Do your best. Live your life. Keep on trucking. All those like bumper stickers.
I really do think that people who like have a little bit of talent, a lot of persistence,
drive is everything.
A vision, creativity, and either, in terms of art or in terms of creating or in terms of like business sense or just whatever. Like, I mean, you can really achieve a lot. It might take a while just to stick with it or whatever. Like, I get really frustrated with the YouTube thing because it's not growing as fast as I wanted to. But I mean, we just,
you got to be smarter. I mean, people got to be smarter. Like, okay, so this is the problem we have. You know why a lot of people fail? I mean, honestly, if you want to be an Instagram model, you and 50 million other American girls, right? Like, be a little smarter about how you're going to execute that. Don't just do this. Go on Instagram right now and we could find a whole bunch of Instagram model wannabes. I could look up right now and find some like 17-year-olds still in high school, and their tag on their IG is Instagram model, and they got like 800 followers because a bunch of perverts probably follow them, and that's not much, but they're doing all the same poses, they're doing all the same shit that everybody else is doing. Do your own thing if that's really what you want to do. And not to mention, how about don't even like look at Instagram fully. Like think ahead. What's gonna come after Instagram? The people that are successful on Instagram, they jumped on it when they could see that was gonna be the big fucking thing, right? You can't be the second, third, fourth, fifth wave. Like these people that are trying to do that now need to look beyond and be like, okay, where's the industry going? Right? It's like you wish you could be a fly on the wall when YouTube. I remember when YouTube first started. I remember when it first started, and it was pretty archaic. You could literally go on there and search for a clip and not find it. Like, okay, it's not on YouTube. Right. You know, now everything's on YouTube. And you have some of these OG YouTubers, like, you know, Zach, you have like the Angry Video Game Nerd. These people that had very simple ideas, but they were the first ones to do it. Right.
Oh, I love the AVGN, man. He's like one of my faves.
Yeah. But
me and the AVGN go way back.
Do you know the guy maybe by chance? You're in the area.
I've met him. He came to Chillerfest one time. He actually got a table.
Okay.
And I was like, dude, I'm a huge fan because I like when I first started getting the YouTube, his, you know, Angry Video Game, or it was back. I think it was Angry Nintendo Nerd back then.
Yeah, before that.
Videos were like showed me what the possibilities of like YouTubing was because I saw it was a character. I saw it was just creativity and passion for like, you know, old video games and stuff. And it was like really entertaining.
Somebody like him saw this platform that was brand new and it was totally uncharted waters. And he's like, hey, look, why do we need backing? We have this format that's right here. Let's just make it. And let's put it out. And now, of course, everybody and their mom wants to be Game Grumps, JonTron. Everybody just copies each other. And it's like, and guess what? Even I was saying like 4 years ago, like, man, these people that are trying to get in this game, they need to start thinking about an exit strategy because it's going out. And look, here we are just a couple years later, YouTube's going down the shitter. And now you have all the established guys. They have an installed fan base. They're already trying to think of their exit strategy going to Twitch or whatever. You know, but some of these guys that are kind of like middle big, man, some of these guys are just going to have to go back to working day jobs, you know? Some of these guys, I watch their videos and I see the videos and the points in their quote unquote YouTube careers where they're like, yeah, I got to finally quit my job. And it was a very scary feeling. I'm like, man, this stuff, YouTube is not job security because you are owned by Google. They own it. They can shut you down. So hopefully a lot of people like AVGN that kind of make their production companies or whatever, and they have the Cinemassacre website, or you guys are using this and realizing what it is in the moment as a good opportunity and a platform and using that to invest elsewhere so you can survive and have longevity. So, but yeah, it's all about just, so people that are on Instagram, they want to be an Instagram model. Don't think about Instagram so much. Think about what's coming next, you know, try and be ahead of the curve, as they say. So, and I know that's easier said than done.
I think it's, you know, in any venture in life where you're kind of, you know, drifting at sea, so to speak, where you're not really anchored down, say like, you know, I'm not like a lawyer or doctor where, you know, climbing the ladder is really, really obvious. It's like, it's constantly like forcing me to like kind of think of ways to, you know, well, how am I going to make money a year from now, whatever. It's like, is to be smart about learning about business sense is really good. And learning how to plant seeds that will grow later on. Like I'm actually trying to learn about investing money and stuff like that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, you know, and I've been like saving money like furiously as much as I can to hopefully invest money in the future so that, you know, you can just have a little bit of like financial freedom in order to pursue these things, you know, because
if we all had crystal balls, man, we would have all invested in Facebook in its first year. You know,
I mean,
we would have bought stocks there. Amazon used to sell used books. It was used books online. And then
I just saw today, Bitcoin's $4,000 per Bitcoin now.
yeah,
You
Bitcoin. That's another thing too, man. Nobody would take that stuff seriously. It's still kind of weird territory. I don't even want to, but yeah, I mean, like it's absolutely.
If I did invest in Bitcoin, I'd be selling it right now because it was up just a couple months ago and then went down. Now it's back up again.
Yeah, dude, I would be selling so hard right now. But if only like you got to be those guys that are at the beginning of the wave. I'm like, you know what? I see something here that nobody else sees because relatively speaking, not that many people invested in Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one of those things you kind of hear about Bitcoin and you'd be like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, oh, that sounds like the most cockamamie scheme ever. I'm not going to do that. So you have to be able to take a risk. You have to be able to take a gamble and just like I said, see beyond what everybody else is seeing and be creative because it rewards you. It does. It's just not going to come your way. But yeah, one of the last questions I want to ask you too, because I didn't know you were from Kansas City. I remember talking to Wizzle, your coach.
I'm not from there originally, man.
So you've been all over the place. What brought you to? Are you from Jersey? What brought you to Jersey? What brought you to KC? Explain all that because I didn't know.
Do you want me to give you a brief?
Give me the brief, yeah, because we don't want to.
I won't. I'll just keep it quick. Basically, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I went to that magnet school. I got a scholarship to go to art school in Kansas City. I had a couple of different scholarships to choose from, but I had gone to a summer program my junior year of high school in Kansas City. So I went to the Kansas City Art Institute in 95, graduated in 99 with a BFA, and then stayed a year after waiting tables, like I said, trying to figure out where I was going to go. And then because I got that job in Chicago, I moved to Chicago. And I mean, when the first time I ever went to Chicago and saw it, I fell in love with it. So I just moved there and started that job. And so I stayed there until about, this was like 2007, went to Seattle for a year, then enlisted in the military, went into the Navy, was a gas turbine systems electrician, a small boy out of Pearl Harbor for 4 years, did 2 deployments. My contract ended. I got out with a honorable discharge, went home to my hometown, Louisville, to figure out what I was going to do. And I was going to just be an electrician because I was like, well, I can be a journeyman really easy considering my background, because I had already gone through electrician school and stuff. So my cousin had set up an internship or an apprenticeship with a local contractor he knew, and at the last second I decided to go back into art and I started looking at schools, and I was I found the Joe Kubert School here in New Jersey because I knew I wanted to do comics. That was like my main goal. I didn't want to go get an MFA because it was going to be ridiculously expensive, and I didn't want to like read a bunch of books. Like I just wanted to learn my craft, Mm-hmm. So basically, it was like I was basically going to be like making money to go to school out here because it was like, just under like my GI Bill. So I wouldn't have to pay any money. And so I applied and I got in, and then I moved out here, and it was 3 years. And essentially I graduated in 2015, 16, and then I've just been working as a comic book artist since then.
So you like it out there? I mean, it's kind of maybe a cool hub to be on the East Coast, but you dig it?
I never would have thought I would end up in New Jersey of all places, but it's actually really cool out here. It's more quiet than say like Chicago. It's a burbs, but it's right off the New Jersey transit line, so I'm only an hour and a half from New York City. But the cool thing out here is that everybody's really nice. The people are really friendly. And
you could probably make it into a trauma movie pretty easily.
I'm like 15 minutes away from Camp Crystal Lake out here.
Yeah.
But I mean, the cool thing is I stay here because I have the peer group of other comic book artists that live out here, professionals. Like Andy and Adam Kuber are just down the street at the school. If I ever need to go see them, they work for DC and Marvel. They're probably some of the best artists in the industry. They're the sons of Joe Kubert, who started the school. So I know them, and I can go see them whenever I want to show them my artwork. And so the community's here, and I know how important that is, because once you isolate yourself off from that community, it makes it harder to stay with it because you don't have the encouragement, you don't have the outlet. So I stay here and I do my thing. And
did you pass up the technician job because you figured like, oh, that's something to fall back on, that'll always be there, and I got to like try to follow the comic book dream for now?
Or do you have the Yoda mentality? There is no try, only do. Do you believe in the backup plan?
I think I was like just using my rational brain, thinking about it's like, dude, you know, you're gonna be an electrician. You're already halfway there. You'll make really good money.
Yeah, that's something that'll never be out of. You know, there's always we're always gonna need to fix broken shit.
Dude, they actually, when I was at my last command before I left the military, I was at a shore command. I was at the Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam Naval Hospital. Doing a desk job, basically just processing awards for the command for like the last 6 months I was in.
Mm-hmm.
And the lieutenant at the command I was at like offered me a full-time job, basically just doing what I was doing, but as a civilian for like $60,000 a year to stay in Hawaii. And I was like, that's really generous, but I just don't want to be here anymore. I want to go home. Mm-hmm. I think I just knew that like I didn't belong in that world. Really, I knew like there was a destiny out there for me. Mm-hmm. Not to be too like cheesy, but there was a destiny kind of out there waiting. But when I got home, I had like 6 months off. I didn't work. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it just seemed like common sense. I'd just become an electrician and I had a guaranteed living doing it because my cousin, who's an architect, knows all these people. And I knew I could get a job, you know, with a contractor.
That whole buyout, that cash out option is always so alluring to a lot of people. Some people, that's all they want, man. Some people want stability, 401k, raise kids, picket fence. And that's cool, man. I've never understood that mentality just because I'm wired differently. But I get that some people don't want to leave their hometown. Some people want to stay in the place where they know their friends. They want to grow. They want their kids to have the same teachers, all that stuff. That's great. People like me and you, I've been all over the country. I'm not afraid to branch out and go do stuff by myself and just figure out where I fit and what feels right. It's that whole thing of opportunity doesn't really knock. That I don't really like that expression. It's like you kind of have to be there where opportunity is. You know, put yourself all over the place. Create your own opportunities.
I mean, my friends when I enlisted in the military couldn't believe I did it because they would. Well, most of them are very, very liberal anyway, but they're like, why would you want to do that? And I was like, well, there's a whole world out there for me to see, and this is really kind of the only way I can do it, and why not? You know, like, why not contribute something I can learn a different skill? I mean, it was only 5 years, and it came and went, but it was like, I think I had that sense where when I changed course after I got out, and I was like, oh, I'll be an electrician, and I was like, no. I think I always trust my intuition. I was like, I felt like there was more waiting for me out there to achieve. And if I hadn't like made that decision, then I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be podcasting. I wouldn't be making my first comic book. And I really hope in 10 years from now, I'll be
everything we do
really great things, you know,
everything we do is interwoven, you know, like this will lead to something. Even this will lead to something. Your book will lead to something. I think the topic and the whole idea of this podcast today is, if you want to be at home and you want to live in your hometown and you want to have kids and a family and you just want to be taken care of, do it. But if in your heart you have a dream and you feel like, Josh, what you were saying, if you feel like you have a passion that's pulling you somewhere else, learn to pay attention and not ignore those intuitions, right? Because I'm just like you, man. Same way. My situation's blessed. I have a wonderful life, but I still feel I'm being pulled to do more and more and more, right? And so follow that.
Yeah, it's like I said, dude. There's people out there who just do things for whatever reason they're compelled to do them. I was compelled to moved to New Jersey to become a comic book artist because I just knew in my heart that was like the right thing to do. You know what I mean?
So in closing though, we have these key points. Follow your heart. Always be at the ready. Keep nurturing your talents because like I said, you got to create opportunities and you got to be at the ready if they do happen to come, you know, knocking at you. And life's too short. It's like life's basically too short. We started off talking about people that pass away at unfortunate ages for very unfortunate reasons that are not expected. Life's a gift. Let's treat it like a gift. Everybody has to leave and check their entitlement at the door. You're not entitled to whatever career you think you should have. You're not entitled to another year on this earth. It's all bonus. So treat it like a party, man. Do what you capitalize on it. If you want to do, the craziest thing to everybody else, just go out and do it. Who cares? Like, if your family thinks being the next Eric Clapton sounds stupid and ridiculous, that's kind of coming out of the people that failed at whatever it is they wanted to do, or they were too scared, or they didn't want to invest, right? So go do it. Clearly Eric Clapton exists. So there's a little bit of room in there. You just kind of have to carve your niche. So, and like I said, if you fail, it's that old expression, aim for the moon, and even if you miss, you're amongst the stars, right? You might aim to be Eric Clapton, but you might just make it to Robin Trower level. And Robert Trower kicks fucking ass, right? Gives a shit.
I don't know who the fuck that is, so apparently not.
That's for you blues guys. Bridge of Sighs, you never heard that song? He's like the white Jimi Hendrix, man. Anyway, so yeah, keep on doing your thing, and life's too short. It blows me away, man. So who cares? Even if you fail, man. Even if you fail, we're all gonna be built. Steve Jobs, what did he take with him when he died? Did he take all his billions with him? No. If you believe in the afterlife, you're going to be at the same pearly gates or fiery pits of hell with the richest of the rich and the people that beg for change. We're all the same. Just take advantage of the time we got. I think that's a fairly good closing point, just kind of summarizing what it's all about. Yeah. Zach, did you take anything from this? What was your opinions? What was your opinions about our chat today? How does it make you feel? Does it make you want to take on the fucking world right now? I do.
Sure.
Okay, I'm inspired. I am. Like, it sort of just lit a fire in me, and it reminded me why I'm trying to do the things that I do. And because sometimes you do have those days, like, no. I want to take I want to take today off.
I totally had a weird day there when I found my uncle died. I was just, we weren't particularly close or anything, but it's still kind of like a jolt. I just did nothing the whole fucking day.
Yeah. You did nothing but question and mope. Yeah, I know.
It was one of those things where you just pull the covers over your head and you just like check out from the world. It's like nobody's needing me, nobody's wanting anything from me, so fuck it. But then I can't do that for very long because it's this weird illness starts to sink in. It's just like this weird depression. And then I have to start getting moving on something again. But it's okay. It's human to have moments like that. But
yeah. I was watching Shark
dust
Tank.
Yourself off,
I was watching Shark Tank, and somebody on Shark Tank said, "You gotta think like a millionaire and hustle like you're poor." Take whatever that you want to, but I don't know, man. Just keep on trucking. Like I said, just apply every bumper sticker you've ever seen to this whole podcast, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
But hey,
do you mind if could I plug some shit real quick?
I want you to plug all your shit. I was about to say, you beat me to it, man. I'm the host.
Oh, okay.
Plug the book, plug the podcast, plug where they can get your art, everything.
All right, well, keep your eyes at scoutcomics.com. The comic won't be out for a few months, but they're going to solicit it for Free Comic Book Day. I think in previews, perhaps. The cover will definitely be in there, maybe a sample page. And then as far as the podcast goes, we're on YouTube right now. We're going to be going live on horrorphilia.com, I think next week. I've given them like 3 shows to upload to the channel. So it's horrorphilia.com. The podcast is called R-Rated Horror Commentary Podcast. Right now we're primarily on YouTube. We have about 29 commentaries up there with an emphasis on 80s horror slashers. And my co-host is Matt Wiesel from the Banana Laser, which is also another podcast on horrorphilia.com. So look for that too, because it's hilarious. And just come find us and look up my artwork. Actually, I think you can find my stuff at joshjamescreative.com, facebook.com/joshjamescreative, and behance.com/joshjamescreative has all my recent work up there. So I take commissions and I sell original pieces, and right now I'm selling stuff for a really, really good price because I'm trying to clean out my archives. I have tons of I have a giant stack of sweet artwork that I'm trying to get rid of. So if you're interested in getting some good stuff at a good price, and just message me.
And take it from a couple of guys that aren't on his payroll. He's good, right? We're not shills. It's good. So check it out.
Yeah, I mean, the work doesn't lie,
Absolutely not. Hey, that's a fun question before I wrap up. Is there anything commission wise you won't draw? Like if somebody came to you with a certain commission, you'd be like, I just don't.
If someone comes to you and says, I want to bake a cake for my gay wedding, would you refuse?
I would pretty much do anything for $1 at this point because it's all about being successful. I do have a friend, and she does furry porn.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like, what if it was really homoerotica stuff or something that you were it was really outside of your? You would do it?
I would absolutely do it. I have no qualms about that. I would probably do it under a pen name though, a fake name or something.
Because that whole manga thing where is really popular these days, where they take famous animated characters and they take the guys and they put them in romance and fucking and stuff, like homosexual.
Yeah.
There's a name for it. Not that I look at it.
I've told people to send Mac and Zach porn fanfic, but they never have.
I'm sure it'll happen as you guys grow eventually.
On that note, go be sure to show Mac and Zach Save the World some love on their YouTube, and if you like it, send them some shitty drawings of them fucking each other. I'm sure they'd love it. And Zach, he'll straight up give you a Snapchat.
Have to do it just to troll him, man.
Do it. You should do it for Zach's birthday. You should go all out and draw him a commission of him and fucking Mitchell. Just look up both their pictures and.
Oh my god,
Zach, what's your birthday, man?
November 18th.
Oh, I got a while to worry about it then. Yes.
Just a big detailed shot, something like a detailed portrait, like your mom would hang up Zach, but it's you taking Mitchell's dick in your mouth up close.
He's got to be taking my dick. That's all I ask. And it'll probably end up being a promotional shot, or maybe on a t-shirt too.
That's so funny. And then of course, as far as Revival House, the network itself, check out our film commentaries. That's kind of what we do primarily if you're into movies, kind of like what Josh James does here. A lot of fun, been doing those for a long time. And we have the Retro Rampage we kind of brought back, and we kind of do video game playthroughs, just bullshitting. It's just for fun, man. It's a nice change of pace from doing the commentaries and doing this all the time, but they don't cut into the way of the commentary, so it's just extra content. And as far as next week, the next episode of this, it won't come out a week from today. We're trying to do these bi-weekly, but Zach, you remember the person we had on the second episode of this podcast? It was the friend of mine that grew up in the church, but he lost his faith.
Yep.
And that was very interesting. We're gonna do the reverse of that. Got a really good buddy of mine who I met during my traveling days. He's Australian. He's the greatest dude in the world. He's so awesome. He was kind of the opposite, man. He's somebody that has turned his life around. He was somebody that wasn't about that life, and the adverse, man. This guy is he's really interesting to talk to. I want to talk to him. So it's exactly the opposite. So
basically everybody could just listen to episode 2 in reverse, and you don't even have to listen to that one. That was a joke. Just kidding.
Yeah, I guess, man. But I like having these people on that are from all different parts of the world, different perspectives, covering Australian, man. We had Irish, a couple ago, which, by the way, I won't announce.
Yeah, that was a good episode, dude. I like that one.
That was good. It kind of leaned political a little bit, but and the guest after that I'm going to try and book now. We're not going to mention it because I want to wait till it's for sure, Zach. But you know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah,
actress. Okay. So that one, if we can get that one off the ground, will be really. Oh
man,
cool.
You'd have to give me a clue over via text or something. Let me know.
Yeah, I'll tell you as soon as we're done recording. You're special. These people aren't. I'm just kidding. But anyway, like I said, look out for Josh James and go to all his channels and all his places and buy his artwork. And then check out the rest of our stuff and sub if you like it. And be sure, if you guys are on YouTube, love you to death, but make sure you check us out on iTunes and Stitcher and anywhere you get podcasts. Subscribe to us there, and be merry. That's all I got. Anything else? Done?
That's all I got.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, our pleasure, man. Bye-bye, puppets. Bye.